Today's episode is brought to you by Regret. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Screen Test Podcast. I am Chaz, and with me, as always, is my co-host, the only person I offered this job to that did not pass, Aaron Milton.
Heyo! Man, it's been a long time.
It's been a minute. Not for listeners, it's been a week, but for me and you, it's been a hot minute.
We've been gone all of December.
Yep.
And here we are for, we're speaking to you from the past. It's the 5th of January. So, man, it's been a long time. It feels like we just have not sat down and done an episode in quite a while. Did you see any movies or watch anything interesting?
Glass Onion.
I saw Glass Onion in theaters in November. One of the rare people that did. I didn't realize how limited that release was.
Super limited. Only there for
like
a
under
week.
1,000 theaters, I think.
Yeah.
What did you think?
Knives Out was better, but Glass Onion wasn't bad, is my opinion.
I went a little bit different on that one. I actually kind of like this one a little bit more than I liked the original Knives Out.
Okay.
This one, to me, had a more fun tone to it. I think the cast was more enjoyable, like top to bottom.
Yeah.
Like, I liked, I think, everybody in this one, where Knives Out, I think some of those characters aren't as interesting because they're not, like, in the whole center of the plot.
Like the Nazi child?
The Nazi child just wasn't as interesting as Dave Bautista. So I liked it a little bit more because of that. I saw Violent Night.
Okay, yes.
A week after Christmas. And then I saw it again 2 days later.
You've seen that movie twice, both in theaters, yes?
No, once in theaters.
It's already in streaming or on streaming.
Once rented it.
Okay.
When I had family over.
You gathered all the children around and said, "Kids, we're going to watch a Christmas movie, Violent Night."
Chaz, the movie is a blast.
Yeah.
It was a super fun movie. Now obviously it doesn't take itself very seriously, but like if you were to just take away the violence and the swearing, and it is very gory, like it's shockingly gory, like people getting thrown into a wood chipper gory.
Fargo.
And, decapitations with ice skates.
Mm-hmm. Happened also in the movie Whip It.
Yeah, if you take all of those elements out, it's a beautiful little Christmas movie.
It's a beautiful little Christmas episode. It's probably like 27 minutes long.
Yes, if you were to take out, there was a lot of swearing in that movie, but it was like the core of that movie. It's like watching Elf.
Okay.
You just got to believe in Santa. It's like the center theme of it. In fact, the child relationship in there, you're like, this is literally every Christmas movie that exists right now, just with decapitations. It's very bizarre, but a very good movie. I really liked it.
All right. Two things. One, I have 2 sleeping dogs in my vicinity, so all background noise provided by. And Glass Onion, I kept waiting for Ethan Hawke to pop up again. Why was he only in this movie for like 5 seconds?
Ethan Hawke. Where was he in this movie?
He was the dude who injected that thing into their mouths before they got on the cruise ship to get...
Oh, yeah. I actually kind of forgot about that because it is so brief. It just happens for what? Just a minute.
Yeah, that was literally my first thought before I could really process the movie after it was over was, why was Ethan Hawke in this?
Well, you technically have 2 very random cameos. You have that one, which I totally forgot about. Yeah. And then
Hugh Grant.
Yeah, Hugh Grant. Just randomly like, I guess Daniel Craig and Hugh Grant are married or something. I don't know.
And Natasha Lyonne and Angela Lansbury. All kinds of weird people popping up in this movie.
But I totally forgot about the Ethan Hawke thing. You're right. He was there very briefly. That feels like a waste. Because he kind of felt like he was just weird enough that he would show up again in that movie, but no.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, from what I heard, he is friends with Rian Johnson. He was filming Moon Knight. So he just hopped over to Greece to film that one scene as a favor. And then went back to film Moon Knight.
Interesting. Didn't know that. The more you know.
The more you know. Aaron, your job I mean, we had a great time doing the Real Movie Talk podcast, but when we started to pivot to screen test, your job was offered to, what were some names that I went through? Ira Glass, Roman Mars, Joe Rogan, Ashley Flowers, Karen Kilgariff, I think is how you say her last name. Both of the Office ladies, Terry Gross, Mark Maron, my 87-year-old neighbor, a waiter I once had at Chili's, Malcolm Gladwell, and then since all of them passed, here you are. So
Honestly, you probably should have taken that guy at Chili's.
he passed.
He's probably got some stories, though.
Yeah. He was, how old do you have to be to work in the state of Virginia? 16? He was 16?
Probably 16.
So here you are. And in that vein, I would like to spend the rest of today's episode talking about actors who passed on roles. And all of the alternate universes that are out there where these actors did not pass on these roles.
Ooh, I love this. I love this type of discussion because it kind of goes twofold. One, we get to say, is the movie actually interesting or better with that person? Right. That's obviously kind of... But then we also get to look at that actor and be like, did you screw up?
100%.
By missing out on this thing.
Most of these are yes.
I know the classic Will Smith in The Matrix.
Yep.
That's a classic one. Yeah, he done goofed on that one.
He done goofed. He didn't do The Matrix so he could do Wild Wild West.
Yep. Bad choice.
Yikes. He also passed on Django Unchained, but he's not even on my list. He could have his own episode of this genre. But most of this is coming from you having your job and the scuttlebutt around town with Avatar just coming out since you've already dated this podcast. Avatar 2, The Way Water Moves or Waterfall or Don't Go Chasing Waterfall. Avatar 2, Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls.
I love that. Yes.
It's out now. Matt Damon has been in several interviews where he says he was offered the role of Sully, remember that's his name, in Avatar and passed it up.
So would the movie have been better with him? No. Now,
the movie's going to be what the movie's going to be, I think, Avatar.
You're right. I would say that is probably a rare movie where I don't think the actors even matter.
Right.
Because, especially now, 90% of it is done with CGI, just giant blue people. So, but if I recall correctly, I kind of have to go back in time since the original Avatar came out, 13 years ago. But if I remember, one of the initial complaints, so who's the guy that plays Sully?
That one Australian dude who's very forgettable in every role, Sam Worthington.
Okay. And that's exactly my point. If I remember correctly, Sam Worthington, at that time, they wanted him to be an action star.
Yeah.
And remember Clash of the Titans?
Clash of the Titans, okay. Yes.
Like, movies like that were coming out around that time, and you can tell there was like this point where they thought Sam Worthington was going to be that. But the number one complaint that kept coming back about Sam Worthington is he's forgettable and boring. Mm-hmm. Like, he's just not an interesting person to put on camera. It doesn't mean he's a bad actor. He's just forgettable.
Yeah.
And we kind of saw that play out. Like, he's probably lucky he got into Avatar, and they'll make 1 million of these that'll go on for the next 4 decades. So he's probably lucky that he got that, because I don't think he would have been put into a lot of, like, he hasn't been put into a bunch of other movies.
Yeah.
What has he been in the last? So
Loving.
He probably needed that more than Matt Damon, obviously.
Yeah, Matt Damon has his own career. He's doing fine. However, James Cameron told Matt Damon if he signed on to this movie and subsequent sequels, he could have 10% of the film's gross. So Matt Damon left almost $300 million on the table.
This has to be fake.
No, it's true.
That has
Both Matt Damon and James Cameron have confirmed that that was the offer.
What, like, this doesn't make sense on a few fronts. One, why would James Cameron make that type of deal unless he thought the movie wasn't going to do that great? Yeah. So whatever. And then two, why would you offer a deal like that to a guy that's mostly going to be in blue CGI?
Right.
For the whole film.
I think a lot of this revolves around James Cameron is James Cameron today. I mean, he has other titles under his belt, of course, but at the time, Avatar didn't exist. So when he's pitching this, he's basing it off of Terminator 2 and Aliens. Two sequels, nothing original there. Or he did Terminator 1, yeah. So he's got that original there. And then if you are a film production company, you're probably wanting that name, Matt Damon, on that poster. You're billing Matt Damon. So to try to get him on board, there's not, I mean, you've got Sigourney Weaver. Is that the most known
Yeah.
person in the first Avatar movie?
Because at the time, Zoe Saldana, I
Not.
don't think was
She
a
was
name.
coming from what? The Losers? So she's not
Yeah.
been in Guardians of the Galaxy or anything yet.
Yeah, she doesn't become a name until much later. So, yeah, because even the villain, I don't know his name. I feel like he's barely in the film anyway. So yeah, it had to be Sigourney Weaver's probably the biggest name in that first film.
Yeah. So and she's friends with James Cameron, so she's doing whatever he's doing.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes of all time. James Cameron has responded to Matt Damon talking about this offer in multiple interviews, absolutely confirming that that was the offer and saying, "Get over it."
I don't. It's still funny. It's still. I don't. I like James Cameron as a person. I just don't like.
Yeah.
And obviously, you and I have talked many a times on previous podcast episodes of our kind of disdain for James Cameron. I understand he's a great director in the sense that he makes a lot of money and he knows how to make a blockbuster. I'm not denying that. We're not gonna, argue over those facts. But it is impossible also to argue that this guy is not a jerk.
Yeah.
Like in interviews, he sounds like a jerk. He just seems so arrogant and fine. Maybe he feels like he's earned the ability to be arrogant, but that's a funny story. Like that's a funny story to think that this could have had Matt Damon and Matt Damon could be literally by the end of this series could be a multi-billionaire just based off of being an Avatar if he had taken that deal. That's funny and that's interesting. So James Cameron would be like, "Ooh, get over it. Shut up. It's an interesting story."
Maybe we'll do an episode on worst Canadians. Maybe he'll top the list of just worst Canadians.
No, he is the worst.
And Ryan Reynolds is the best. Who's the best Canadian?
You know what? You do have a podcast episode here. Because you know what always gets me is there's always like sneaky Canadians. Like there are people that are Canadians that you like.
Sneaky Canadians.
You look at you've seen them your whole life, and you're like, oh, they're from LA.
Yeah.
Look at them, they're so LA, and then you're like, Ontario.
I can tell you when you say that, bleach white teeth, tan face, white short shorts all the time. I'll tell you exactly who screams California but is Canadian through and through. Will Arnett.
Yes, Will Arnett, and it's because eventually he does move to New York.
Yeah.
Will Arnett to me screams. Well, he screams LA now, but I think his kind of aggressive personality feels very East Coast to me.
Yeah, that's fair.
It just doesn't feel Canadian. That's for sure. Man, that's a good a secret Canadian episode.
Secret Canadian. That's the name of it. Secret Canadian.
Yeah.
Dwayne Johnson is not Canadian. Get that out of here.
There's no way.
Due to changes in Canadian nationality law, The Rock became a Canadian in 2009. So he's not. That doesn't count.
He's a recent secret.
Yeah,
Canadian.
he's a convert. I was going to say Ryan Reynolds has to be the best Canadian because your boy Ryan Gosling's not Canadian, right? He's Canadian.
He is.
Oh, yeah. Dang it! They got both the Ryans.
They got both Ryans.
What Ryan do we have? Seacrest? What is this?
Yeah, we are importing our Ryans. That's a problem. What's happened, America?
Geez.
We should be exporting Ryans, not importing them.
Can't even get a good American Ryan these days.
Yeah.
Jeez.
What a shame.
Let's talk about Rob Lowe. Rob Lowe passed on Grey's Anatomy to do a show called Dr. Vegas. Which of those do you remember?
Dr. Vegas. There was a show called Dr. Vegas.
Yeah, and if you just told me that and said, who do you think was the star of Dr. Vegas? Rob Lowe.
I mean, Rob Lowe is a pretty good guess there. Gosh, boy, do I want to see Dr. Vegas so bad right now.
Let's see how long it ran.
All right, let's guess this. All right, Dr. Vegas.
It's 2004.
Ran.
Let me just put that out there.
Okay. I'm going to say it never completed its first season. I'm going to say 7 episodes.
10 episodes.
Ooh, I was so close.
So you were right there at it.
I was so, because there's no way a show named Dr. Vegas lasted more than a season. Like that's, how did you read the title of that and go, yes, this will be a successful run?
Oh, man.
Of course not.
It looks, even like the cover art looks bad.
When it comes to Rob Lowe, what do you think of, like, when you think of Rob Lowe, where are you like, oh, that's where he was at his best?
What's the one he's in with, is it Black? It's not Black Sheep, is it? With Chris Farley.
Oh, yeah, it is Black Sheep.
Is it? That and of course Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec. I think of Atkins commercials. Like that's peak Rob Lowe for me right now.
Okay, not The Outsiders, not Wayne's World.
No.
Atkins commercials that should have ended, 10 years ago?
No, Atkins is running hotter than ever.
Yeah, they are.
Gosh, I've got like a pantry full of Atkins candy bars.
Do you?
They're not bad. They're not bad.
Are
honestly.
they carb free?
Like,
is Atkins the carb free diet?
Yeah, it's the low carb diet.
Gotcha.
So none of them have sugar in them. So they're like this nougat and peanut butter, and then whatever the chocolate is actually made of. So they're actually not that bad. They're actually pretty good.
Okay.
I don't hate them. So thank you, Rob Lowe. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Rob Lowe.
He would have fit in Grey's Anatomy though.
Yeah, he would have been the Patrick Dempsey character. So that's a pretty forward role.
That one, that character lasted a long time.
Yeah.
And the only reason I kind of know that is because I do walk by the living room when my wife is watching the show. So, I keep very gentle tabs on what is going on in Grey's Anatomy. Which, by the way, what an epic run for a show. This
right?
show probably should have been canceled 5 years ago, 6 years ago. That thing's still running.
I thought it ended.
I don't think so.
Oh, I got
either that or she's watching reruns. I don't know.
She started from scratch. It's been on for 11 years?
It's been on for a ridiculously long time.
Grey's Anatomy
I can see Rob Lowe in there.
Yeah.
And I like Rob Lowe in Parks and Rec. I wonder.
408 episodes.
It's pretty bonkers. So obviously he made a mistake. Mm-hmm. Well, he should have done that.
Did he though?
Yes. Yeah, I think he would say he did.
Well, he doesn't say he did. He says if he did Grey's Anatomy, there would have been no way he could play Chris Traeger, and that to him is enough to make him feel like he made the right decision.
You know what I want to know? I don't know if we have an answer for this.
Okay.
What's the intentions to keep Chris Traeger's character on that show for as long as they did? I kind of get the sense that that was a throwaway character.
It seems that
turned out to be a hit.
It seems like what's the other character's name that Leslie marries? Ben. Man, it's been a minute since I've seen Parks and Rec. It seems like Ben and Chris were supposed to come in together. Ben was supposed to stay. Chris was not.
That's exactly how that feels. Yeah. And especially even plot-wise, they're really coming in to clean house is what they're doing. Like that's the whole point and purpose of their characters being there. So that's temporary.
Yep.
And I think what ends up happening is I think the character ends up becoming a sneaky big hit. And at that time, his archetype doesn't fit with anybody else on the show. So it's not like, well, we've already got 2 of these right now. He felt different enough that they kept him around, which was I think that was a good choice. Yeah. I think he's a good character. He's a memorable character on that show.
Yeah, the world would literally be very different if he didn't exist.
It would have.
Madonna turned down both Batman Returns and The Matrix.
Has she been, I know this, I'm probably going to hate this. Was she ever an actress?
She's been in a few things.
Has she? I'm going to guess if she did, it would be late 80s, early 90s, and that would be it.
She's been around. She's in A League of Their Own. She's in...
Oh, that's right.
She's in... Isn't she... Maybe she passed on it. But I feel like, wasn't she in a Bond movie where she's really bad?
Ooh, I don't think so. I feel like that would be very memorable.
Die Another Day. She did the song. She did the song. She's in that movie.
No way. Why would they do that?
And she's so bad. I remember it because she's so bad. It's just a cameo. She's not a Bond girl or anything. Yeah. And it's so bad that it's a memorable cameo. That's not the kind of memorable cameo you want.
No. Why would they do that? That's awful.
Yeah. So she shouldn't be an actress. For me, the world's better because she passed on these 2 roles.
Sure. Although you could argue that those Batman films, it's not like they were great Batman films either way. I don't know if she would have.
I like Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman.
Yeah, I guess
that's the one that scared the bejesus out of me.
Yeah, I guess we are talking about the problem is that those especially those early ones, they're not bad, but when you go back and watch them, they're pretty tacky.
Yeah, of course they're tacky.
Like
they're not.
They're pretty. Yeah, there's some tacky films there, so it's kind of one of those things that like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it would have made that much of a difference if she was or wasn't in it.
What about her as Trinity in The Matrix?
That would have been awful. And you know what? No, because picture this then. Picture this. All right?
Picture.
We just talked Will Smith at the beginning.
Yep.
Imagine The Matrix with Will Smith opposite Madonna.
Do you want...
Who was casting that?
I have no idea. Let's
Like, that's horrible.
let's play a game. And you try to guess the age difference between Madonna and Will Smith.
The age difference between Madonna and Will Smith.
Because they would have played love interests if they were Trinity and Neo.
I'm gonna say he was I'm gonna just say like 16 years.
It's only 10. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
That would have made sense because if you think about kind of, she would have been considered young in the late 80s, early 90s. Like she probably would have been, I don't know, sitting in her 30s, maybe late 20s, early 30s. And he wasn't that far behind her.
He was Fresh Prince.
He was Fresh Prince. That's a good point.
All right. So Ray Liotta was too nervous to play Tony Soprano because he was scared. He was scared he would be typecast as a gangster.
But he did Goodfellas, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I'm crazy in saying this, but Ray Liotta is to me the picture perfect looking gangster guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Like picture perfect.
It's his eyes.
It's his eyes. He's got the eyes that are like permanent eyeliner eyes. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And that's Ray Liotta.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is...
If
I don't know what he was thinking. He was always going to be typecast.
Right.
As that. He was born. I'm pretty sure he was born looking like a mob villain.
Oh, for sure. If you ask me, hey, who would you say is the pinnacle of movie gangster? I'm either going to say Joe Pesci or Ray Liotta.
Ooh, man, that's a good one. I didn't even think about Joe Pesci, but you're probably right. Pesci might. You're right. That's 1 and 2.
Yeah, Pesci on a stool, standing on a stool, and Ray Liotta.
Because I don't even think about that. Because in my mind, it's Ray Liotta.
Yeah,
Ray Liotta is mob guy, but Joe Pesci, yeah, he's right there, man. Like right there. But yeah, it still doesn't make sense to me though why he didn't do Sopranos. Is it because he did Goodfellas, and then everybody was like, "Oh, you're the mob guy, you're the mob guy." So then when they came to Sopranos, he was just like, "No."
Yep, that seems to be the way it went down. R.I.P. Ray Liotta. We'll never be able to ask him, but this was post Goodfellas. He didn't want to be typecast as a gangster, so he passed on Sopranos. Sopranos would go on to change the face of how television is made.
Yeah, that's I know. Obviously, Sopranos gets a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, that was the first big
HBO
show.
It did, but I don't think it was ever as big. But did Oz come out before that, or did Oz come out after?
I think Oz was right after The Sopranos.
And then they had The Wire.
Yep, Oz was 1997. Sopranos. 1999. So Oz was right before Sopranos.
Because Oz I know had buzz and Oz had attention, but I think Sopranos becomes, what do they call it? Water cooler talk.
Yeah. Yep.
The following day, and I think that's kind of a big deal. But when you think about it, that was original content from HBO, and adult dramas suddenly become a thing. I mean, you probably don't get things like Breaking Bad.
Exactly. Yep.
You probably don't get. You probably don't get Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
None of that stuff without Sopranos.
That's true.
So, yeah.
What about...
Sorry, Ray Liotta. You kind of done goofed on that one.
What about the fact that Eddie Murphy could have made Who Framed Roger Rabbit just a little bit different? He would have played the Bob Hoskins character.
The reason why that one doesn't work, you and I are obviously both big fans of Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
And Bob Hoskins.
The reason why that... Hoskins is perfect because Hoskins is a straight guy, where Eddie Murphy's a funny guy.
Yeah.
And kind of an animated person in and of himself. that balance would have never worked in that film because obviously Roger Rabbit
Right.
is the cartoon character. So I think it would have just been a waste of who Eddie Murphy is.
Yeah.
And it would have been like Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey's obviously more animated, but that doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. So Hoskins was great. He was a great fit for that.
It is just Beverly Hills Cop with a rabbit is all it is if you put Eddie Murphy in there.
And that's a pretty good point.
Eddie Murphy also turned down Ghostbusters and Rush Hour.
You know, we've talked about Eddie Murphy before, but his career arc is just weird.
It is very strange.
It's just weird because he really does disappear. And hearing this type of stuff, it sounds like it was very much intentional. It wasn't like people weren't seeking him. He just wasn't taking. But I just watched a trailer right before we got on here for his new Netflix movie with Jonah Hill called You People.
Okay.
Which looks like it's a Guess. Do you remember the movie Guess Who with Ashton Kutcher?
Absolutely. Yeah. Guess Who's Coming? It was a remake of.
Yep.
Guess Who's Coming?
Basically, is another version of this.
Okay.
But it really pits a black family and a white family together. So comedy ensues. So it'll be a Netflix one. But the dad is played by Eddie Murphy, the very serious kind of gruff dad.
Gotcha.
But it just I watch it and again it reminded me then like where like Eddie Murphy randomly now pops up. But there was like 15 years you didn't see him at all.
His career is so strange because he's got Nutty Professor, Coming to America, Shrek. We did a whole episode on Shrek.
Yeah.
And then he's got like Meet Dave and
Pluto Nash,
The Holy Man, all these weird just one-off movies that no one ever watches.
Yeah, and yet he's turning down apparently at some point actual options, which I don't think were great fits for him personally, but
if anything,
it's
Rush
still,
Hour.
Like, well, yeah, okay, fine. Rush Hour maybe works. But he turned that down and did Pluto Nash. So it's like, what were you being selective about? Like, what stuck out to you to say that I want to go there or not there? It's very weird.
It is very strange. Matthew Broderick, you mentioned this earlier, decided he did not want to be the one who knocks when he turned down Breaking Bad.
So would Broderick have been Heisenberg?
He would have been Walter White, yes.
I know that role is obviously iconic.
Yep.
But I actually don't hate Broderick in that role
I don't either. If he could pull it off.
I think he could have.
Yeah, I feel like he could, same as Cranston.
Yeah, I don't think he's... And you could maybe argue, like, well, Broderick only really does comedies, or it's what he's known for. I mean, at that time, Cranston was known for Malcolm in the Middle, a comedy. So,
yeah, that's it.
So, obviously, again, you kind of have to clear your mind a little bit because Cranston is so iconic to that role. The image of Heisenberg is so connected with him. But if I really erase that and kind of start this fresh and I start from the very beginning, could I actually see Broderick in that? Yeah, I could. I could totally see him doing it.
He said he turned down the role because he did not want to play a bad guy. Always got to be the good guy. Tom Hanks ended up. Well, Tom Hanks isn't even doing that anymore. Elvis.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I hadn't really thought about that. Chaz, if you were an actor, if you were to be typecast, how would you rather be typecast? Would you rather be typecast as hero guy or the bad guy?
Bad guy all day. It seems so much
Bad guy's more fun.
Yes.
So much more fun. And I would argue that, yes, in the grand scheme of things, that character is a bad guy, but it's not really initially displayed to you that way. It's kind of like a desperate guy just getting desperate.
Yeah.
Eventually becoming evil.
Yeah. I mean, that's the world. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can almost argue he's an anti-hero, at least initially.
Initially, yeah. I'll give you...
Initially. Then he's not.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would want to be typecast as the bad guy. And then when you find that one little thing where they're like, you know what, this time you're going to be the good guy. You break all expectations and like, oh, look at this guy stepping out of his world. And then you win awards. That's how you win awards.
That's true. So I'm just surprised that was his stance. Yeah. He doesn't want to be the bad guy. It's like, well, why not? Who cares?
Who cares? It's money, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk.
And it's fun to do something different.
Yeah. Let's talk about stances. Man, can you imagine? It would have been even more so, I think, with him of, look at this guy. He played Simba, and now he's Walter White on Breaking Bad. Cranston was, the funny guy can do serious, but Matthew Broderick, this guy can defeat Godzilla and then make meth. He can do it all.
The best Godzilla.
Let's talk about taking stances. Matthew Modine. Does that name, I know it rings a bell, but can you place who that even is?
No.
Okay. Matthew Modine could have been a household name, but turned down the role of Maverick in Top Gun. Matthew Modine.
I'm going to have to Google him.
Matthew Modine is Papa from Stranger Things.
Okay. All right. You know what? The problem is he would have looked too much like some of the other guys in Top Gun.
That's all Top Gun is, though. People who look like each other.
I don't know. I felt like more people... maybe this is selective memory, but I feel like a lot of people were blonde.
Yeah. Okay.
In Top Gun.
That's fair.
And then you had Tom Cruise.
Yeah. Matthew Modine, at that point, his hair was brown, though. Not as dark as Tom Cruise's, but...
You know, I just wonder, like, man, you just sit there and think about, like, could we today be talking about Matthew Modine as a household name because of Top Gun?
Who knows? Who knows what the world would
And we're not even talking about Tom Cruise anymore.
Right.
That's the guy that failed doing Risky Business or something like that.
He was in the movie Oblivion, and we never saw him again. Remember that movie?
You think Tom Cruise would have made it that far? No, that would have been Modine's movie.
That's true.
Modine's
Oblivion. He turned down the role because he said he felt it promoted militarism. This man's most known for Full Metal Jacket. So,
that's kind of
anti.
Full Metal Jacket is an anti-war film.
Yeah, so he is very much in it. So the fact that Cruise made $100 million off of Top Gun Maverick alone probably doesn't bother him too much, because this was a moral stance that he took turning this role down.
I guess, but it probably didn't do much for his career either, because it's not a household name. I just had to do a quick Google on that, and yeah, you were right. As soon as I see, he's the guy from Stranger Things, I was like, all right, I can connect those pieces. But I mean, if you know what though, I don't want to take too many shots. You don't have to be a mega celebrity.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You're totally fine if you're somebody that lands in the middle. That's totally cool.
Money's not everything.
But I'm going to guess you get into the acting business to eventually get to that point. Right. So,
how about John Cryer? You know John Cryer.
I do know John Cryer.
He's known. He was too serious of an actor to be in the show Friends. He was offered the role of Chandler Bing in Friends.
I could 100% see that one.
Well, yeah, hindsight's always 20/20, but at the time he's coming off all those John Hughes movies.
Sure.
He says, I'm too serious of an actor to be Chandler Bing in Friends. And instead, he goes on to be the butt of every joke in 2.5 Men.
So, of course, that's exactly where my mind went. It was 2.5 Men. So that's why I was like, okay, yeah, I mean, he could do comedy. I could see a world where he fits into that group. That doesn't seem completely out of here. But you're right. That's totally a hindsight issue that I'm doing right there, where I know that eventually he pulls it off in a sitcom. And does pretty well for himself on the show. And really, I think that's kind of... I'm guessing he probably made a ton of money off that show, because that show lasted a long time.
It did.
Because he hasn't really popped up in a whole lot of things. But again, I could see this. I could see a world where that would have existed and that would have worked. But
I will say, though, the last few seasons of Friends, all of the Friends were making $1 million an episode. So
yeah.
Rough.
Which is crazy. Like, that is crazy money to think about for, 23 minutes?
Yeah.
23 minutes of television? Jeez.
All in all, 23 minutes. Emily Browning, do you know who that is off the top of your cranium?
I'm going to have to Google that one.
Sucker Punch. Series of Unfortunate Events.
Is she the blonde-haired lead?
Yeah, she's the main girl in Sucker Punch.
Okay.
She could have been what Robert Pattinson was smelling, but she turned down Bella in Twilight.
Again, they're such iconic characters now. Mm-hmm. Whether you like Twilight or not, which I'm not particular to Twilight, but
you can't sit there and say you're not particular about Twilight with that tattoo on your forearm.
Please don't talk about my tattoo. They can't see this tattoo. Do not talk about it. Okay, and that's a different Twilight that it's referencing. It's not referencing. It's referencing the books. The books were better.
The time of day, Twilight.
But Stewart,
Yep.
Kristen Stewart.
Kristen Stewart, right?
She's such like a bland person, but it's just again, it ends up working for those films. Think about that though. But just picture the trajectory though, because Kirsten Stewart is really interesting, right? She hits it pretty big in that movie, disappears, but is now considered kind of like an indie darling.
Yes.
Like she pops up in a lot of indie films.
She fought aliens underwater.
People like her in those films, and they use her a lot for those. Imagine a world where that is. What's Ashley Browning? What's her name?
Emily Browning.
Emily Browning. See, I already forget her name. I'm looking through some of the movies that she's been in, and the most notable one as of recent. So obviously Sucker Punch,
Right.
which was a huge letdown. But she was in Legend.
Yes.
Which I never saw Legend. That is when you've got the two Tom Hardys, the twin Tom Hardys.
Two Tom Hardy. Double Hardys.
But that that's it. Like that's all she's really been in.
Well,
by the way, Legend only had a 61% on Rotten Tomatoes, so
nice.
It wasn't like a whole lot of people like that film.
She was the author, Stephanie Meyer's #1 choice. When I say the author of Twilight, not just some random author. Hey, I like her for this role. She turned this down because she actually didn't know if she wanted to act anymore. Might be why.
That's
She's not in a lot of stuff.
It's a pretty darn good reason.
Heck yeah. If you are not sure you want to be in this industry and somebody's throwing a bunch of money at you, but you have to sign a contract for at least 3 movies,
yeah,
good on her for not just giving in to the money.
Yeah, I think that's like, to me, that's a good enough reason. What's been bizarre is seeing actors who apparently like being actors, who have always been actors,
right,
turning down things and then doing worse things. Those ones always stick out to me. It's like, what are you doing? It's crazy.
And I will give you this: if Twilight didn't exist, we wouldn't have the Twilight spoofs. But more importantly, the best thing Kristen Stewart has done in her entire career is the SNL Tostinos commercial. We wouldn't have that.
Some of my least enjoyable actors have done some of my favorite SNL things. Like, I sit there and think, like, Peyton Manning, who I didn't think was, he's an athlete.
Yep.
Has some of the funniest skits on there. What's her name who plays Padme?
Oh, Natalie Portman's rap.
Natalie Portman. Natalie Portman is absolutely hilarious. So yeah, and then you just get like these random people that you like, you don't enjoy, and then you see them on there and you're like, actually, you're pretty darn funny.
But I think it's a credit. I mean, Natalie Portman's her own thing, but I think it is very much a credit to the writing that they can write Kristen Stewart's, just her personality into that. Because
That's true.
It's not what she's doing that's funny. It's when she says, "What's your name?" and the other girl says, "I was never given one."
Yeah,
It gets me every time.
that's true.
If Kristen Stewart was food, I think she'd be a saltine cracker.
Yeah, I can't think of a better one off the top of my head. You're right. It's a saltine cracker.
So, Emily Brown, would the world be any different if she played this character? I don't think so. I think
Probably not. No.
We'd be exactly where we are right now. I have 9 more of these. Do we continue, or do we stop it here and make a sequel episode to this? We are.
Oh, I would hold on to these. Because according to my recording, we're sitting just over 40 minutes deep on this.
That's
9
right.
of these is going to get us well over an hour. And if you've got that many left over, this is either some of those are trivia questions or that's a part 2.
I think this is part 1, and next week come back and we will wrap this up with a part 2.
Wow, I can't believe there's this many of them.
Right? Oh, this is just a small pool that I pulled from.
That's true. There's probably like an unlimited amount of these.
Yes. And part 2, I will say, has some of my absolute favorites.
Oh, okay. All right.
So come back next week and we'll go ahead and finish this out. And I have an idea for an episode where you're going to be a detective and we're going to do a murder mystery.
Finally living out my dreams.
So that's coming up. So this is it. This is Screen Test Podcast, guys. And if you're not liking and subscribing, you are taking food out of our children's mouths. So
Yeah. My kids have not eaten in months.
please subscribe.
And that's not my fault. That's your fault for not liking and subscribing. That's on you.
Yeah, I know this is an audio podcast, and I know you're talking to the listeners, but when you said your kids haven't listened or eaten, and it's your fault, and you looked me dead in the eyes, I'm not sure how to feel about that.
Yeah, I meant you as well.
Is
A
it
lot of
because
people hold responsibility for this, and it's not me.
Is it because I made a copy of your key and I sneak into your house and eat everything out of your fridge at night?
You need to stop doing that, by the way.
But that's all I got for you.
See ya.
Actually, that's not all I got for you. I have 9 more of these, but